So after the incident happened, your life kind of changed
Yeah.
during that time.
Complete change.
So what was your first thought?
So scary. It was so scary. Overnight, you find that I was an intensely outdoors person, gardening, cooking, helping my mother. She didn't have to call me. I enjoyed playing basketball, going for long walks, and so suddenly, after the accident, you find that you are completely dependent on others. There's no privacy in your life. There will always be someone around even to do your very, very personal things. So that was so bizarre. That was so scary.
And it comes suddenly.
And it came suddenly. So for me, it was like, what is happening to me? I'm lying on this bed and below the neck. So I'm just this much there. That's all I am. I can see, I can hear, I can smell, I can eat. Nothing else. That was pretty scary. But then I also don't like the other word, like differently able. And they have messed it up. Many called it differentially able. I personally identify with a person with disability. Person comes first, disability is second. Never ever say I cannot, impossible. These words should not exist in your dictionary.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, The Healing Monk. I am Dr. Suman Das, your host. Thank you very much for liking and appreciating our previous episodes. But please do subscribe. Your subscription makes a lot of change that we can bring better and better guests to the show. Also, in your comments, give your opinion, give your critics, and also suggest if you think someone can come to the show and give such inspiring stories. Coming to the today's show, कभी कभी ऐसे लम्हे हमारे जिंदगी में आते हैं जैसे सपने बिखर सी जाते हैं। उम्मीद की वो किरण दूर दूर तक नजर नहीं आती, लेकिन वही लम्हे हमें हम ही से मिलाते हैं। वही लम्हे हमें हम ही से मिलाते हैं, अपनों और परायों की पहचान भी कराते हैं। हमारी हिम्मत से रूबरू होते हैं और ना हम उजाले की तरफ खुद चलते हैं, दूसरों को भी साथ लेके चलते हैं। Today, the guest that I have on board is an epitome of inspiration for millions of people. She has changed the word called adversity into an opportunity for advocacy. She also changed the word called rejection to rejuvenation. Yes, I am speaking about Dr. Shruti Mahapatra. In this podcast, we are going to discuss about her journey from adversity to advocacy. What are the attitudinal barriers she faced during the journey? How she found happiness in small to small things. She practiced gratitude, forgiveness, and also we will be discussing about disability rights. Welcome, madam. Jai Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath. Namaskar Samastanku. Good morning.
Thank you very much for accepting our request and coming on to our show.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm sure this podcast will give a very good positive vibe to every one of the listeners. I'm a big fan of yours, madam.
Thank you so much. You see, if we are able to change someone's thinking, even 1% of your audience who hear it, I think we would
I
have
think
achieved
yes,
something in life.
definitely. Tell me, madam, how was your childhood?
Oh, it has been a wonderful childhood. I think the best any child could get. I had wonderful parents. They were working parents, but they not just knew, they understood and practiced a balance between work and family life. And that's what probably, and we were five siblings, yet each one of us was able to come out with the best in us. I was given as many opportunities for going for debate competitions, essay writing. I also learned Hindustani classical for some time. But both my sisters, younger to me, they were given ample opportunities in Hindustani classical music, in Odissi music, in Odissi dance, so that they could hone their talent which was within them. My brother was given many opportunities in playing, in a maths Olympiad, and my youngest also got similar opportunities. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in my childhood, we did not grow up with the notion of study, study, study.
Okay.
Study, but also read books from outside the syllabus. So we had a ritual, Suman. Our ritual was every Sunday morning, my parents took us out. We had very simple, I'm not saying very high fi big hotels, small South Indian hotels. Vinasin had just started,
Ah,
Priya, and we would have a lovely South Indian
right,
breakfast.
right.
Then we would visit one relative. It is irrespective, mother's side or father's side, but one relative definitely will visit. And then on our way back, we would go to the Wheelers in the station. And each one of us was given money to purchase one storybook of our choice.
Oh,
So we discussed amongst ourselves who will buy which book so that all five of us could enjoy. So that was a ritual which we practiced, I think, till I was in my graduation. And in the evening, it was play as much as you want to. So after coming back from school, during those time, we had a lot of space in front of any colony you will
ah,
go. Papuchi Nagar, BJP Nagar. We were in Unit 9 and Old Town. There was always a playground, simple ground where kids of that area came and played. So come down, have your food, rush to the playground, and we used to play. Again, one simple instruction. When the street light gets on, you all have to reach home,
yeah,
wash your feet, do your evening
prayer.
prayers, go to your study table. Then another interesting thing was Saturday, no studies, Saturday evening, full masti. And Sunday evening, you have to prepare for Monday class. So life was, there was so much of discipline. Yes, I must tell you something more interesting.
Please.
Every week, there was a timetable, my sister's, my in that timetable, there was one little box which said, "Help mommy." She was a working woman, so we were taught what we could do to help mommy. We had to help in the
Ah,
kitchen. When guests are there, clean the table, wash the plates, take care of your younger siblings' shoes, whether they are polished or not. Simple chores, clean your wardrobe, take care of your bed. So, so that's how. And in the morning, he woke us up as per our potential and as per our sleeping habits. I woke up every day at 4 in the morning. That was a ritual I had. Get up in the morning, study for an hour, but 5 when my father would come out, share a cup of, I would hold my cup of milk, he would hold his cup of tea,
ah,
talk a little. He will read out the newspaper headlines to me, and my sister would wake up at 5, brother would wake up at 5:30, and my middle sister, the one younger to me, she was always a late sleeper. She would
acha.
sleep late. So she was given the freedom to wake up at 7 o'clock. So everything, it was imposed. There was discipline, but the discipline was such that we could easily do it.
Actually, so many things. It's not about, I think, the balance that you spoke. You were taught about gratitude. You were taught
Yes.
about relationships. You
Yes.
were taught about helping.
Yes.
You were taught about sharing.
And I will tell you about, we had something in the evening called as the evening rendezvous.
Evening?
Rendezvous. When we
Okay,
all
rendezvous. Okay.
so in the evening, after our studies were over, it was every day you have to study. On the study table, 1 hour maximum. But you have to revise everything that you read in the class and prepare a little for next day. So within 1 hour, it was all done. And after that, we used to come and sit out in the, wherever we had a little courtyard or a small garden, we'd all sit outside and we would sing, we would share our whole day's problems with him, sibling quarrels, school challenges. I remember even pimple was a problem, a growing pimple. And then my mother would join a little late. She would come back from her clinic or hospital.
Nursing home.
So that is where I learned everything about discipline, about respect for your elders. I remember having complained about my teacher that she's like this. You know what my mother said? My mother said, I think there are 30 students in your classroom. Why did the teacher single you out? Why not the 29 others? So these were things which we were taught. You cannot. Even if your teacher has done something wrong, we will take care of it. You have no right to disrespect your teachers. Then everything you had to share. Since I was the eldest, it was my responsibility to ensure that everything that my father or my mother got for us was equally shared. There was always, and if there is someone poor, if there is someone less uh, well off like yours, always help them. And this practically we saw help others. We had a very old Fiat, the Petu Fiat, that thing,
Old.
that old
It was one
Fiat
of the
model.
oldest cars.
Yes. And the number I still remember, ORP 4811. So
Oh.
we saw ORP 4811 even at the middle of the night, taking our relatives to hospitals, uh, taking the groom for a wedding, taking the bride to leave them at the groom's house, taking old people who passed away, like my mother's grandmother, taking them to the crematorium. And every time any family member, there was no father side, mother side like that. Anybody in trouble, called them, irrespective of how tired they were always available to help people. So help others, share whatever you have with everybody. I have seen my own mother. Patients, she started a hospital later on. Patients have gone from the hospital giving her only 6 steel spoons or 250 grams of ghee. The street vendors, they came to her. Her one cardinal principle was, when patients walk in, nobody is going to ask them to deposit any advance or talk to them about money. Patient is in distress. It's my role as a doctor to make them comfortable. Not just comfortable. Suman, it was my responsibility to ensure if the food has not arrived, provide a dinner, simple dinner, roti, dalma, and a cup of tea. It was my responsibility as the eldest. She said, if you do, then your siblings will follow you. So those
So it
kind
was
of
like
values we learned from.
lot of and lot of things that parents in the present day have to learn from this, and the sensitivity that you were taught,
Yes.
which is something that I think worth that in the present day our parents and others should learn.
I will tell you something. I was recently, I won't take the name, it was a big private school. And one of the school teachers complained that these kids, they're coming from very rich background. They're misbehaving with our nannies who are there at the school. So it seems if somebody dropped something, they would say, I'll call my father, you dropped this on me. Or using bad words also. Yeah, so I will tell you one incident. Once, I was very angry because I was in a rush. I had an exam the next day. I had to take care of my siblings' revision. She had to finish. I had to help her with that. And then it was my responsibility to clean my shoes and not just polish my own shoe, but polish of the youngest. youngest and mine. I have to do two shoes. So I finished that. I just shouted at our house help that couldn't you just iron my
Mm.
skirt? It's already way past my sleeping time. I have an exam tomorrow. My father came there. He stood there. He was listening to everything. Then he called me to his bedroom. Said, "Come." He said, "Can you afford the salary of our house help?" I said, "What are you saying? Like the day you are able to give a salary, the day you are able to hire a person, maybe you can ask them, question them. Until then, remember, they are your mother and your father's employee, not yours. They are our domestic staff. You have to respect. You have to cooperate. You have to help them when they are overloaded. You cannot shout at them."
I say the same thing to my children. Like my maid Kumari is there, so I tell them, You have to call her Kumari auntie." And even like suppose some festivals are there when they touch the feet of the elders, like Raja festival in our year, we ensure that she also touches the feet of the maid. So we
That
try to do that.
the
In fact,
respect you need to. And
yes, yes.
second is parents need to give time. They must give. Doesn't matter how important is their business meeting. Doesn't matter how many engagements, social or whatever
Mm,
engagements they have. Their child is growing up very fast. And if you miss that one annual function of your child, you're missing something big and you are making the child understand that it's okay to miss
mm,
out on social functions. You are responsible for your child. You and only you are responsible. So I think a lot of children who are getting wayward these days. I remember one school annual function. Our school did not have an auditorium. So it is Kendriya Vidyalaya. Then we didn't have. So we used to do in Rabindra Mandap. So my thing was to look all around and check where my parents are. And I would see them. They would wave their hands and we would all be very happy. Okay, they're watching. One day I was looking all around. I did not see my father or my mother and I was getting a little upset. Then I suddenly hear a loud clap. My father could sense it on my stage.
uh,
They clapped. And when I look towards the clap, I see, you there are steps from the stage to always go down. There were no seats, so we're sitting on the steps and watching this. So
okay,
that
so sweet.
that builds so much of respect for your parents, so much of
Yes.
love, so much of bonding. Whatever is your business arrangement or social engagement, can it even compare with this? What you have
True.
given your child by your physical
Mm,
presence?
mm,
Parents need to spend more time, or they have no right later on to complain. And parents need to be disciplined. When
discipline. Yeah.
parents are not disciplined, what are they teaching their child? They're teaching indiscipline. And
Mm.
later on, they keep on complaining she did not switch off the light, she did not switch off the
Yes, they
fan,
learn
she's
it from us. Yeah.
wasting your food, buying
Mm.
food from the outside, they're very happy. That's because they have seen growing up, they've seen that.
Even simple thing, people not obeying a traffic rule
Yeah.
with the child on board.
And you're
That
teaching the
that
child
we are
this is
teaching the
okay.
child. Mm.
It's okay.
But it's actually not okay.
No, it's
True.
not okay. It's whatever you do, your
Mm.
child. So good parenting is not something very easy. Good
It's a
parenting is
complete
a
different syllabus, and
yes,
the syllabus will vary from every person to person.
every person.
Yeah, yeah.
You're walking on the sword's edge, little
Uh,
this side, that side, you injure your
correct, correct,
feet,
correct.
isn't it? So you have to be very, very careful until
Mm.
your child is 18. Your
Mm.
luxuries you have to sacrifice.
Lot of
Your
sacrifice. Yeah.
lot of sacrifices go into making parents,
Mm.
good parents.
Good parenting. Let us now come to our like you were a very good student during the
Yes,
school, and you had an accident in 1987.
yes.
So just wanted to ask, madam, what were your aim and aspiration before the accident?
Okay. Aim and aspiration before the accident first, when I was doing my intermediate in science, even when I was doing my class ninth, from class ninth, the desire was I will become a doctor like my mother because I loved her approach to her profession, which was about service. Service first. Money comes much later. So it was always sitting with the patients, talking to, I sometimes feel she cured many of her patients just by talking to them.
Yes.
They opened up their hearts and they just shared with her. And so many of her patients, they became lifelong friends of ours.
I'll tell you one good thing just to
Yeah.
interrupt. I am a cancer radiation oncologist.
Okay.
So I face cancer patients daily. And I see the first day when they come, the first day when the family hears about that ward diagnosis of cancer of their mother or father or the daughter, whatever, there's so much of stress they will have. And the first day, I usually spend around, let us say, 45 minutes, 1 hour, whatever number of patients are there outside, or let us say lunch is there. But I will ensure that I will spend as much time on that first day with them,
Right.
just telling them that this is not a big problem that you are facing, to get them out. Because once they understand that what is this cancer about, or what is their disease, not only cancer, let us say what is their disease, what treatment they are going to get, and they're going to come out of it, I think the 90% of the treatment is over there.
Yes.
The rest of the thing like surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, they are just like it will just pass by.
It's just a process, it will
Yes,
just
yes,
happen.
yes.
I can 100% relate with what you are saying me, because this is what I have seen my mother doing. She makes them so relaxed, so comfortable, that many of them forget why they had come there, consultations, and they just feel happy coming and talking to her. So she has been part of hundreds and thousands of patients, their childbirth, their child's some important function, the child's marriage, and so on. They just, that relationship, that bonding,
Even
it
some
goes on
lovely
and on.
gifts we
Oh,
get.
yes.
I have one Etikopaka. There is a Etikopaka is a what you call dolls they make out of wood.
Uh-huh.
So there is a patient who will paint with his hand, and every time he will get one
Little.
doll for me.
Yes, this also I can relate to, because every time patients would have a function at their home, there will be sweets, there will be saris for my mother, there will be gifts for us. I remember one of her, two, three of her patients always bringing lovely pickle. Then
Uh,
during Diwali, lot of
I do get
patakas.
that.
See, I think that's is something you cannot build, when the patient comes in and say, "Someone hey gala janti." You have to spend time with
Yes,
them.
yes.
You invest your time and you buy love.
So you wanted to be a doctor.
Yes. Then there was some little bit of issues. I couldn't become one. So next was, everybody started telling me, you should now try to become a bureaucrat, because that's again another place where you will get ample opportunities to reach out to common people and help them with their issues. So that got ingrained in me. So I was preparing my life to be a good civil servant. And another thing I also want to share with you. When I started playing basketball, my father became an expert in basketball. Terms, terminologies, best players, best teams. And then our access was only to a radio
Right.
and to the newspaper. So he became an expert in no time, and he was teaching me. So also, when decided that want to become a bureaucrat, he was spending a lot of time bringing me from the archives or achievers from Odisha, their interviews, reading it out to me, and books to read. He gave me options, and my journey, that process of preparation, has really been so vibrant, so beautiful. As I talk to you, also, I can see it, how he was holding my, when I decided to do anthropology. We used to have two
Your
subjects.
father was a
Anthropologist. Yeah.
He was in the
He was in the government
professor?
of Odisha. No,
Okay.
he was in government of Odisha.
Okay.
He retired as deputy director of 3T,
Okay.
Tribal and Harijan Research Cum Training Institute.
Okay. Okay.
So my father worked with Koyas. They were his favorite. Thing. So in a Koya family, when a girl child is born, the newborn child is called Piki.
Koya tribes.
Koya of Odisha. Koraput. In that way.
Understand.
So when I was born, he nicknamed me Piki. So Piki means a newborn Koya girl child.
Oh.
Okay. So we grew up listening to stories of tribes. He would describe, he would bring beautiful stones from pebbles from the rivers he crossed.
Mm.
Many stories he told us about their culture. So we grew up and it got embedded in me so much. Then when the choice for a second subject came, I instantly said, I want to take anthropology.
Okay.
Instantly, he took me to Utkal University, head of the department. Then he's retired professor and so many others. I mean, that was one thing he always told me. Then we did not have all this, this quiz books and test books. These were not there. So reading was always from textbooks mostly. So test papers and all were not there. He would always tell me from our childhood that read your book. If it's a 20-page book, read from 1 to 20.
Mm.
You don't need to rely on any other book. If it's this 100-page book, read from 1 to 100. Then you don't. So that also, it grows up on you. So when everybody was saying, oh, you have to read hundreds of books, I was saying, why should I read?
For
If
the
I'm,
IS preparation.
yeah, for the Indian polity part, one book, Didi Basu, Constitution of India is
reading
enough.
one book properly is better
Yeah,
than.
That's something he again taught us.
So after the incident happened, your life kind of changed
Yeah.
during that time.
Complete change.
So what was your first thought?
So scary. It was so scary. Overnight, you find that I was an intensely outdoors person. Gardening. Then I had a beautiful garden. I used to work with my mother. Cooking, helping my mother. She didn't have to call me. I enjoyed standing side by side to her, doing as much work as playing basketball, going for long walks. I used to get up at around 4 in the morning. So by 5, I'll take a break. And at 5 o'clock, I used to walk down when we were staying in Unit 9. I would walk. We then used to have a milk van coming. So when people will be standing in queues at 5 in the morning, sometimes it would be so dark in the winter. Take your can, go there, buy your milk, and come back, take the exact change. So walking was another thing which I loved. So all these things.
It was a car accident when you were going to Puri.
Yes.
Oh.
And so suddenly, after the accident, you find that you are completely dependent on others. There's no privacy in your life. There will always be someone around, even to do your very, very personal things. Like during your menstrual hygiene, there is someone has to do it for you. You cannot comb your hair. You cannot put the buttons at your back. You cannot wear your underclothes. Everything you need help. So that was so bizarre. That was so scary.
And it comes suddenly.
And it came suddenly. So for me, it was like, what is happening to me? I'm lying on this bed below the neck. So I'm just this much then. That's all I am. I can see, I can hear, I can smell, I can eat. Nothing else. That was pretty scary. The second thing, you then mentally start preparing yourself. Okay, I will be always dependent on someone. There will always be somebody to take care of my. Okay, let me adjust to that. Mentally, you are adjusting with that. How will you live with this thing? Then the next blow comes to you, the social blow. When you suddenly see someone walking in with a wedding card and telling that it's over. That emotional trauma, first physical trauma, then emotional trauma. And then you receive a letter from Government of India saying that you are rejected.
So firstly, just your marriage was fixed, which was rejected because of this incident.
Yeah. So physical trauma, then emotional trauma, then comes your mental trauma, that you cannot join the job of your choice because you are disabled. So that, I think, coupled with one another, these three, they just broke me. I mean, I had never cried during my accident. All the burns, all the cuts, I tried to live with it, but the day I received the letter of rejection, I broke down. I
I
broke down badly.
I can actually relate it in a way, like as I was telling you, the cancer patients that I see, many times when they hear about that word diagnosis of cancer, the first thing that comes into their mind, because cancer has gone a paradigm shift, but that fear is still there.
Death.
Okay, death, that fear is still there. So what they do, they will first, what feeling that you are having, they'll have that, and again that is compounded by the other friends and relatives
Oh,
who will put 99% of them will put negative into their mind.
yes.
Like patient was telling, so she told that once she got the diagnosis, she kind of got a phone call that so and so had cancer, he died.
He died.
My another auntie had cancer, died. Then the third person, she reached the other person on the other side of the phone. Then before that, she only told, the patient told, I am not going to die, I am hanging up the phone now. So that person already told about two persons who died, and before the third person, this person told, see, I am not going to die,
So
you don't
don't.
talk this nonsense now, I am hanging up the phone. She kept herself away from all her phone calls, messages, for nearly 6 months during the time that she was undergoing treatment. And she told me after that.
I think ultimately when it's a suffering in your life or a challenge, then after that, doesn't matter whether it's a cancer or spinal cord injury or it's a
Mm,
mental trauma, our journey is the same. We either crash or we just transcend that challenge and we rise up,
exactly.
isn't it? For me, that stimulus, that motivation came from my family.
Mm.
Now, when I was there in in uh, Bagayam rehabilitation, in Bagayam they gave me a new lease of life. My doctor told me you will never walk, so I abused him and I verbally abused him and I just shouted left and right. But he just tapped me on my head and said, "Babu, আমি কালকে আসবো, তুমি এখন থাকো." And I was crying, and the whole night I was crying. Next morning he came. He kept his promise, and I asked him every question that came to my mind. He answered.
That first moment of breaking the bad news,
Oof.
that
It
is a.
was, see, this was good. You need to have a surgical break. You need to know that, yes, this is not going to happen. In case of cancer, there are millions of survivors now. They must know. But in my case, where there is no research, it's a traumatic spinal cord injury at the level of C6, C7. When you know it's a complete thing. And he was nice after that. He said, look, hope is your best friend, but I'm not going to give you it one day you're going to walk. I'm telling you that you can never work. But always remember miracles happen. So it is such a positive way of conveying a message the next day. By that time, same thing was my father. When I returned, my father underwent a severe kidney collapse. His both kidneys failed. My brother was not in the eligible age, so they said, no, we can't take. Both my uncles, my father's brother, were diabetic. So there was nobody to donate. My mother said, I will donate. They said, no, you cannot. You're in so borderline diabetes. So we had to go for a person who would donate the kidney. And in that also, actually, I have so many stories of kindness, compassion, strangers coming and becoming, helping you.
Helping friends.
I think if I start also on a story,
You
it will
can,
never
madam, no
end.
problem.
So
My
this
my.
Dr. Tyagarajan, he was in Pandalya Hospital in Madras. How good doctors were then. I'd seen my mother, such a great doctor. And I saw Dr. Tyagarajan when he came to know that I am in Vellore undergoing rehabilitation. My father has come. He personally talked to each and every hospital and doctors. He is in a great financial stress. None of you are going to ask him for more money. Just take just the OT fee, whatever is the requirement, take that. Nobody takes the fee and walks away from you. My fee you will take and you will give it to him so that he can later use for its medicine.
Oh.
Because he is very self-made person. He will not accept charity from. So on his own, he was going and talking to people because they had to stay for 7 months. They needed a small house. He talked to his old patients, found a complex where there are other patients with, kidney transplant and all, either waiting or
Mm.
apostasy, and talked to the land house owners. You must give them a very subsidized look. His daughter is undergoing this. So where do you find these kind of doctors? This
Mm.
is God. People you don't know walking into your life and helping you. This is how we feel the presence of the divine, the God.
Yes,
He
yes.
will not come and stand. The Krishna will not come with his. Well, he might be coming to some very elevated souls, but this is how we have to perceive the presence of the God and the Gurus.
I can relate so much, madam. Day to day,
Yeah.
all my patients that I when what you are telling, I can relate it completely.
So when I left my rehab, but then there was acute money shortage. So my mother told me, "You are not in a critical condition. Your rehabilitation, your father is in a critical condition. We need this much money urgently. You have to shift, you have to go home." So my uncle came, my mother's brother, to take me from there. And father and daughter, we met only for half an hour in a hotel called Hotel Sudha.
Okay.
Remembered these people because Hotel Sudha was so kind to my father that they would extend him extra meals. If he could not eat the regular meal in the hotel, they allowed my mother to use their kitchen, cook something for him.
Mm.
See, God, you perceive the presence of the divine everywhere. And then when I came home, I did not have my guard, my armor. That's my father and
Father.
mother. Society, I'm talking about 1987, 1988. People had this business of interfering in everything that was not their business. Too much of gossip. So that was my most traumatic phase
Do
in
you
my
think it
life.
has changed by now?
No, not much,
Mm.
but it was pretty bad. I
I'm
had,
telling you why, because I see this regularly. I see this regularly. Uh, One patient, in fact, I was doing a podcast with a very good gynecologist, a friend of mine. So then I was asking, what is a common myth that you have seen among your patients? One patient had broke her pelvis during some accident. Then she got pregnant. Okay. And many of her relatives told that, why are you getting pregnant? You could get a disabled child.
oh my goodness, oof, that's the reality
And,
for now.
and actually, we have that kind of, like, we have one extreme of people who are helping, and one extreme of people who are kind of completely negative.
Yeah, so much of offhand remarks I
Mm.
got. Even people going to the extent of trying to move my leg and telling me, "Ah, lazy girl, she's not doing any exercise, not trying to move." Everything they criticize. Oh, what, she's now a burden on her parents. I became so much overwhelmed that anytime people would walk into our house, I would tell my sisters and brother to lock me, and I never came out of the room. My caregiver would lock the door from inside. So when my father and my mother arrived after almost a year, my father said, "Hello, stranger, who are you? What is this? You are not my daughter. What has happened? Where is my daughter?"
Mm. Means you were kind of broke down by that time.
Yeah, I was not meeting anyone. I only
Mm.
cried. I
Mm.
threw my food. I created, you see, this is a strange psychology, but all of us need to understand. When we are in a very sensitive spot, I mean, like me, three kinds of rejection: physical, emotional, and monetary, you can say,
Financial.
mental. So all these rejections are there. You tend to become very sensitive to what people are saying. So I was taking everything literally. I was crying, and I was taking it out on my poor little siblings. They were trying
That
their best,
frustration will come out on someone.
and they were so loving. For them, it was like, this is not our sister who's
Mm.
always standing there to help us, even protect us from dad's wrath. Even if we did something wrong, we rushed to her, she helped us out. What is wrong with her? Why is she always shouting, cribbing, crying? Who is this person? Once I sent my sister at 9 p.m. in the night, "Go and get me this video cassette. I want to watch it tonight." I was so insensitive to them. I was so bad to them. But then arrival of my parents changed a lot. They were crying in front of my parents. I was crying in front of my parents, and what an amazing role they played. Individually, they counseled us. In a group, they counseled us. Again and again, in everything, my father would say, "Kids, nothing has happened. It's just a functional challenge. See, she cannot walk, she has got a wheelchair, right? She must do everything. She can do everything." So much so that my youngest sister, who was studying in school then, she would wake me up. Earlier, I had this excellent excuse: I have not slept through the night. My body is burning. I won't get up in the morning. She'll tell me, "Get up. Baba says you are fine. You are nothing has happened to you. Get up and help me with my homework." So slowly, slowly, the environment at home changed because I was doing
It went
every.
from that negative to positive
Yeah.
totally.
And he did not allow anyone visiting the house to talk about my disability. Never.
Actually, that is very, very essential. Like, as I tell you, my patients, when I talk to them, the first thing I tell them, one thing I need for you is that do not talk to others about your problem.
Yes.
Problem is, we talk to our relatives, let us say uncle, brother, sister, or someone, thinking that we will get some help, or I should tell, they are my relatives, I should tell. But the problem happens is knowingly or unknowingly, they kind of try to help, knowingly or unknowingly, they try to either
Their own ideas, isn't
they will
it?
put their own ideas, which 99% of the time is negative.
Yes.
99% of the time is negative.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that affects impact that mentally the patient so much that they kind of think that my life is gone. So and so died, so and so died.
Yes.
And as you are telling about one thing about your siblings helping you, okay, but in the present day the scenario is completely different, mainly because of the phones.
Oh,
Okay, I'll tell you one very nice
Please
incident. I was doing kind of a cancer awareness program. So I had a panel where one of my patient was the panelist. So I asked, what was a moment during your chemotherapy you would like to remember? Then she told. So in the chemotherapy, there is one bed here and there is another bed here, two beds adjacent to each other. So the other person, when she came, she had almost 10 people who brought her. Okay. And this lady went with her husband. After 5 minutes, they were both lying on the bed. Chemotherapy is about to start. And after 5 minutes, none of the relatives of the other patient were there. They had they were outside or sitting there with their phone. And she told, that time I felt so happy that I have my husband who is sitting by side of me and trying to talk to me. And she was telling the same thing, like she was having that irritation and all that during that moment. But she can think that her husband was so supportive that instead of looking at phone or instead of doing something else, he was sitting there completely supporting. So the scenario is totally now that sensitivity and all that thing has been badly affected by the mobile phones and our the other distractions that we have in this society.
Yeah. Actually, there are two things I want to share with you why the scenario is changing. Because I also say something always is success is a collective effort. No one, doesn't matter how successful a businessman, a doctor, an engineer, or a bureaucrat, or even our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is now a statesman. None can claim that they have achieved it by their own because there is always a whole group of people behind who are doing. But when I hear the young people these days who are successful in entrepreneurship or engineering, or they say, Mooney, I did it myself. No, you never did it yourself. So this is one thing that I have learned from my Guruji. Guruji always says, You remember that when you were most vulnerable, your mother kept you in her body, fed you from her food, gave you a breath from her own breath, and that's you survived the most difficult 9 or 10 months. Then he says that when you were born, there were a whole lot of people, your father, grandparents, uncles, you were most vulnerable. Anything could have happened to you. These are people who stood beside you, your primary school teacher. And saying all these things, he finally comes and says, the air that you're breathing, Mother Nature has given it to you free. So all your life you have been taking, taking, taking. It's time to give back.
So it's a
So a
gratitude.
family has to learn that they are a collective responsibility. They all have to give each other time. They have to all give each other respect. They have to be each other's examples. I think my father and my mother understood that, and they practiced that, as a result of which, even after my accident, uh, such a disastrous accident, and from 100 I went to zero I went to minus 10 or minus 20. I was not just able to recover, I was able to carve a niche for myself, make my life beautiful, easy, comfortable, and to some extent change the life of others. So I think this happens, number one, you have to. Second, parents need to have more than one child. So this is now Guruji's clarion call. He's telling, very recently you must have heard, the news was there, South Korea is becoming extinct in a few years because the general ratio of 2.1 child has fallen down, I think 1.5, 1.6, which is non-recoverable. Japan is on that way. Remember, they are selling more child diapers, they're selling more adult diapers than child diapers. People are going back to work at the age of 70, 75. We are very proud in India, we are saying that we are a young population, but how long? He says, if you take a research, you find that you're always going for one child for convenience. But remember, many beautiful rituals, many beautiful relationships are dying because of this. Number two, and our times, he said, we had 3, 4 brothers. So one went to the army, one became a monk. But now with one child, who will guard the frontiers of your country? From where will you get soldiers? Then he also says, you highly educate your child, you send them across the borders. They become successful in US, UK, and you struggle for your last breath because you're two old people relying on each
see
other.
that regularly.
So these are things which are happening because family bonds are breaking. When all of you, I have seen a family where the father, the mother, the grandfather, the two kids, everybody is sitting in the drawing room, dining table. Then we went to everybody with
More
a
fun.
phone. I remember our evening rendezvous where my grandmother, my father's mother, or my mother's mother told us stories. My father told stories. We shared our challenges, and that's how the family grew. So this phone business, looking at this phone day night, I think we should just stop our children. No phones for you. Somewhere we
true.
should. I don't know how. I don't know the how of it, but I do know it needs to stop. So that mother, I will tell you another small thing. Whenever we went to our father, we told him something. Baba, this is the problem. If he was reading a book or the newspaper or a cup of tea, he'll keep it down. He will look at you. He will listen to you, then he'll give you a solution.
Rather than watching it,
Then this is what I am seeing even in our old families.
Correct.
Yeah. So the child knows you're neglecting the child like anything. How will the child bond with you? So, to a great extent, it is not peer pressure actually. It's not peer pressure which is creating such challenges for our kids and our youth. You have students of class 7 and 8 taking drugs. It's not because of peer pressure. It's because of bad parenting. Somewhere you did not give the attention, the time that your child wanted. So there is no communication between you two. The child is not able to share his or her problems.
Correct. So nice, madam. Actually, one thing I can relate, that your father, your Guruji, and you yourself have practiced gratitude so much. And in the present day, what I feel is that we are actually away from that thing, and we should tell our children about practicing gratitude, being more sensitive. And that is so important that you have learned. Now, I would like to take you through the time, like the accident happened on 1987, and then you got yourself involved into other activities during that time. How did you think about getting into advocacy, or when did you feel that I don't want charity, these are all my rights? So when did you feel that? How did that happen?
See, one thing which always bothered me, when I tried, family was very sportive, and my third sister, was studying in Shantiniketan. Then she would always insist that go out with her to the cinema, to the restaurants. But I had very bad reaction of people there, the public there. Then I would always come home and ask myself, what happened? I'm that same person. Similarly, when the rejection came, I am that same person. My brain is so active. I can think rationally. So, why people always think of me as someone who needs to be either avoided, to be kept at a distance, not eligible, has no potential? Why thought it? Then, when I became a taxpayer, I was running my study circle, I was paying my taxes. The thoughts changed a little. It was there. The query was there why this is happening. But the query also took now a little aggressive stand as to I'm a taxpayer. When I am paying taxes,
Mm.
why don't I get the basic minimum services? Okay, my father can afford to have a car and a driver. But what about the rest of the people with disabilities? Do all of them have this access to a car, a chauffeur, a caregiver? Not just one, two, three caregivers. So how are they managing? Why they are not being treated as dignified citizens? And I don't remember the year, but once I had my name was enrolled in the voters list, and I had been there, but they said, sorry, ma'am, the polling official bulls were not sensitized. So they said, no, ma'am, your name is not there, and we don't allow disabled people to vote. So these things were always, there was a churning going inside me. And finally, in 1994, my sister, she left for the US. She was always sending me books and literature. It came by surface mail. So whenever they came, I read and was learning very quickly, because that's a habit, to read as much as possible, absorb, know my rights. So I was getting to know a lot of things. And in one of those magazines, it was a little advertisement was there. Disabled People's International is opening its India chapter in
Mm.
1995 in Siliguri. The meeting will be held in Siliguri. That was there in the newspaper, because that was a huge news. My father showed me in Statesman. It was written, Shri Pranab Prakash, the finance minister, is going to inaugurate the first formal meeting of people with disabilities in this thing. So these two pieces of information came to me. I was not very excited, because I was very happy with my students. I had just
Mm.
started learning, and I was earning a lot of money, and I was doing well. And so that thing was not there in my part, that I'll go and attend a meeting, because till then my caregivers were all nurses in my doctors, in my mother's hospital. So who will go? How will I go? When my mother said, you have to go, I had lost my father then. She said, you'll have to go. So 94, I did my first public protest with knowledge from my third sister, who was staying in Dubai. She and her husband in Delhi, they met a few people. They came back, gave me the information. 94 was the first official protest of the disabled in India
In India.
before the parliament, and we got our first law. Prior to that, if you look at 70s and 80s, there was no disability movement. It was all very scattered. It was the blind talking about blind rights, and rights they were not rights. They were like, we must get education in braille, we must have more schools for the blind. Similarly, the deaf were having their movement, the parents were having their movement for the intellectually disabled. And everybody was a fragmented lot, There's no unified. That also struck me as very unusual. I had a very progressive thinking. I was thinking, we are all people with some or other disability. Why don't we all come together? Whatever little news, very little news was covered by media, practically nothing. Or blind school opens, or deaf school opens, or somebody was raped, those kind of anything which added to their TRP or sensationalism, those kind of news. And then came this year. My mother forced me. She took me. She said, I'll be your caregiver. I will go with you. She talked to her doctor friends who managed the hospital, and me, and a boy caregiver, three of us, we went to Siliguri. Siliguri was my first experience of seeing so many disabled people in one place. I could not comprehend. I'd never seen. All that I had seen was people, special sports when they were held in Bhubaneswar. Special sports, they all came from different parts. So many people talking about this should happen, right should happen. The international participants of Disabled People's International talking about rights, not charity, and all these things were so new to me. And then somebody suggested, and then I went to my room. I got bored. I said, let me prepare. I have to take some classes when I go back. Then my mother comes rushing. Go, they're calling out your name. I said, my name? I don't know any one of them. Then she took me out. Then they were just forming the DPI India chapter, and they made me the women convener of that DPI. That opened up my vista. I was traveling all across the world suddenly. I was going to many countries. I was learning about disability. I found two mentors. I found Teresa Degener from Germany, Dina Radke from Germany, and I had Lucy Wong Hernandez from Mexico. So they became my mentors. And for the first time, Suman, I understood that there is no shame in owning your disability. There is no shame in asking for disability rights, because that's your right. You have to ask for it. And people were living in groups, protesting in groups, learning in groups, which I had never seen here across disabilities. And I also saw government listening to them, talking to them. They were leading very nice, good lives. So I came back to India with a thought very much ingrained in my right. It's okay to ask for my rights. It's okay to question government authorities. It is okay to tell them what you're doing is wrong. I don't want to live on your charity. You have to look at I am a citizen of this country. I should have the same rights as the other citizen. So I was learning very fast. I was coming back, I was experimenting. And when I say I, it was not just me, Shruti Mahapatra. I had a bunch of friends with me. I had late Javed Abidi from New Delhi. I had late Dr. Pradeep Kumar Malik from Kolkata. There was Anuradha Mohit, visually impaired from New Delhi. There was Jayashri Ravindram, speech and hearing impaired from Chennai. So a lot of us, young, hot blood, taxpayers, and anger. So finally, I was able to express my anger, because till then, I thought, okay, somebody is doing something for me. I have to be very happy with that, not ask for more. But now I knew that I have to ask for more, not just for myself, but also to change the lives of people. So that's how my journey in rights began.
One thing I have understood is that rights are never given. We have to demand.
Yes.
And how do you feel that from 1994, now this is 25, how has the disability rights or the rights of disability has moved on in the last 20 years, 30 years?
30 years. So I will just tell you, one thing is, see, when I started Swabhiman, my organized non-profit, I made it cross disability. So this was the first cross disability organization in Eastern India.
Cross disability means it will include
all
everything.
Disabilities. My friend, late Javed Abidi, initiated a cross disability movement in Delhi, and he made it pan-India. So he was looking at the national scenario, and all of us were.
So that's a paradigm, basically.
That's a huge change. Number one. Number two, the journey it has been very organic. One thing has evolved from the other. When we got our after the protest, we got our first law, Persons with Disability Act, full participation and equal opportunities. Now, and protection of rights.
That was in 1995.
Five.
Hmm.
But what they did in that law was made by government babus. So they wrote one line, as per the economic
So
capacity
there
of
the
the
money
government.
came into the
Finished. For everything we demanded to the government, this is my right.
Hmm.
We
don't have
understand
to.
it's your right, but we have no money. So for everything, government hid behind that one clause. The second weakness of the law was it did not have any punitive actions. If you don't do, you will be chastised. You will have a fine.
Accountability was not
There was
there.
no accountability. There was just a state commissioner for disability set up in the capital city. So who will go to address the chief commissioner disability from one remote hamlet in Noapada to New Delhi? Is that practically feasible? So these were the great weaknesses.
Again, also there was no census. The numbers were
No,
very less.
I'm coming to that. So
Hmm.
once we got the law, we rushed to our ministry and we said, you must give us money for education. We don't want this blind school, deaf school. We want to study together with all this thing. They said, money is not allocated in government ministries like that or in state government also. Money is allocated on the basis of the government number. So government number is census and you are 0.27% as per the British census, some 1827 or some census they quoted. So now what do? We go to the planning commission, they said go to home ministry. Census is under them. We rushed to the home ministry. They said, do you realize what you're asking for? This is 1999. 2001 is the enumerator, is the enumeration, the census counting. How many enumerators are trained? Do you know that? In how many tiers? The state government officials, the district trainers, district officials, and then ultimately the enumerators. Over 1 lakh or 2 lakhs of people. There is no time. So what do? Should we give up? So we said, okay, fine. You don't do this for us. Media was our greatest friend. Media and judiciary, our greatest friend in this journey. So we started giving a press meet. We said, blah, 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 this date, we are going to carry diesel and this canisters. We're going to immolate ourselves if you don't give us an appointment. You don't listen to us. You don't count us. That threat worked. Media put it all across. Ministers, secretaries, they read about it. This was becoming a law and order situation. And we were already gathered. A lot of people were there. Police was there. And so what they did is they called a meeting. Our present defense minister, Shri Rajnath Singh, he was then the home minister. So he called a meeting in his office. So our representatives were there. He was there. Menka Gandhi was there. Some other people were there. And decision was taken. Whatever is possible must be done and they must be counted. So I won't tell you that it was a huge number, a huge percentage, because it was dismal. At that point of time, WHO was telling we are 10% of the population. But the calculation which came up was 1.9%. But we were very excited. Excited because suddenly from invisible people, we became visible citizens of India.
That was in 2001.
Yeah, we became visible citizens, right? And there was a big number, 0.27%, and now it is 1.9%. So we started demanding our rights. While this was happening in 2001, because counting happened in 2000, but numbers to come up, it was, I think, 2001 end or 2002. So while this number was being considered talked, 2004 was the general election year.
Hmm.
So we rushed towards that opportunity, talking to different political parties that carry something in the manifesto for us, meeting politicians, both at the state and the national level. And that's how, in 2004, the first political interface between persons with disabilities and politicians was held. There were two interfaces. One we did in Odisha in the morning, and in the evening, Javed did it in Delhi. So technically, we in Odisha were the first interface, and this brought about a lot of change in the mindset of politicians, and the manifesto, though it was only one sentence or two sentences.
So, madam, 2004 elections, did you see any kind of change in the accessibility to elections, giving your vote?
Unfortunately, not. Unlike census, which happened in 2 3 years, we had a number. Accessible elections took us almost 20 years. We started in 2004, then 2009, then 2014, 2018, 2019, before the 19 elections. In 2018, a lot of things were happening. And I will tell you one incident also. So, Supreme Court gave its verdict, a judgment in 2004, that the last two phases of election, at least the last two, make it accessible. It wasn't done. Then in 2009, some districts in India did try for a braille ballot. They did try for ramps and access. So it happened about in bits and pieces in 2009. Then 2014, I was very excited because now we had done a lot of exercise. Government had done a lot of exercise. But when I reached the polling booth, it was inaccessible. There was a threshold on the door. I couldn't go inside. So they had to push my wheelchair, but they could not push it inside. The doors were the tables were so close, there was no space for my
So
wheelchair.
it was a school basically.
Yeah, and they were so irritable to remove the desks, but anyway, they did. And then I went inside, and the ballot box was very high. So I said, "You have to bring it down." So one of the polling booth officers very politely came to me and said, "Madam Soman, why don't you tell me? I will cast your vote for you." I said, "Come on, you don't understand.
That's not
This is
democracy.
this one vote, to do it with dignity, to do it in all privacy that we have been fighting for the last several years. I won't let you." So, though reluctantly, some of them annoyed, visibly annoyed, they did lower the ballot box, and I cast my vote and I came out. But the saddest part was not the attitude of the officials. Saddest part was the attitude of society. Many of them commented, young men, young men, women, they commented, "Ha, with her one vote, she is going to topple the government. She's going to bring in a this thing. These people are so insensitive that they don't understand that we have a meeting to attend, some place to go, and this, that." Then I took a strong resolution in my mind. We are not giving up this campaign, all our efforts, but we are going to strengthen it so that one day they will have to wait outside while we go inside with dignity. So 2000, again, lot of work went in. Our polling officials were sent to international different countries to learn. We had national seminars, lot of discussions, civil society participated hand in hand, and finally in 2018 Voters' Day, the theme of that year's election, general election for 2019 was accessible elections. So in 2019, I went with dignity. The moment I reached, volunteers were ready with their wheelchairs. I said, "No, I have mine." The volunteers to push me. The ramp was really nice. Its gradient was good. The room did not have a threshold. The tables had already been shifted. The ballot box was at a height I could access. With absolute dignity, I cast my vote as a proud citizen of India.
Similar was a incident when you went to Jagannath temple also.
That is the insensitivity of the society. It sometimes makes me wonder. India is such a rich country. If we go to the early Vedic ages, you find sensitivity, you find acceptance, you find such broad thoughts. We had women priests then. They sat side by side to the main priest and did the yajnas. But now we are having articles coming out. Oh, should women be allowed? Should women become priests? So, from this elevated thought from early Vedic age, now we have stooped down. The priest told me, "How many lives you have sinned that you are
Got this.
you're a cripple.
Mm.
And now you want to commit these mistakes again and again. So these were this really, for that matter, many incidents, whether it was getting
think
rejected
in
from my job or getting a upper berth in the railways, wherever you look around, human insensitivity is at its
insensitivity.
peak. Insensitivity is at its peak in India.
One thing was, I think now they have made one wooden ramp in Jagannath temple, and the construction is going on. As I was doing the research, hopefully by end of 2025, we'll have a permanent construction. They have
Yes.
got some approval from ASI. And
Yes.
as I think, I was doing research about how many temples have accessibility. I think Tirupati temple has accessibility for the disabled people, and few others.
Siddhivinayak temple
Siddhivinayak
has.
has. And
This our Kedarnath, Badri, all of them have access.
but my question is, what about the other temples? What about our temple, like
Ancient temples.
our we have here our
Lingaraj.
Lingaraj temple. So,
No, not
Ram
yet.
Mandir is there. Everything. When we will have that?
See the temple of India when you talk about is Sri Jagannath temple. And after a lot of advocacy, Swabhiman got the contract to audit its accessibility. So we reached there, but we were not allowed. I was not allowed to go inside. I stood outside. I said, I'll stand here on my phone. I'll keep giving you instructions. A photographer was not allowed. So immediately we got one artist to do the sketching. So our access audit team, along with the artist, we did entire audit of the temple. They could not say us anything. We were measuring. Measuring tape is allowed. We had an artist to sketch it. We're not taking photographs. We did it. We sent the report. The scheme of Government of India is called Prashad scheme. So we did the report. We submitted it to the collector, in the ministry, in the Government of Orissa, ASI office. So I'm expecting, and they also asked for designs of wheelchair. So we gave them. Have you seen the small wheelchairs of Indigo Airlines or others, the cabin wheelchairs?
Yes.
So something in those lines. Actually, Suman, if you look at this wheelchair, it has no leather in it, right?
Okay.
It's aluminium and Rexin.
Mm.
Why they're not allowing it inside the temple is a big question.
Yes.
I mean, why? It's not leather anywhere. Then they told me, Apana Jagannath agere, you cannot sit in front of Jagannath, you cannot sit on a chair.
Okay.
I said, show me a scripture, show me a book which writes that. They could not show because it is their Panda's creation. It's not our scripture, it's not Hinduism, it's not Sanatan Dharma, it is not one of our Vedas, it's not Jagannath Ashtakam. Nothing says that one cannot go like
Every
this.
temple, when it is being constructed, they should have that sensitivity to have
Things are changing.
accessibility. Yes,
I have
things
heard
are
in many temples, things are changing.
That's true. That's true. Definitely.
I am a hardcore optimist.
Definitely.
Things have to change. They may take a longer duration. Many things have taken a long duration.
So the journey from 1995, now it's UNCRPD. We have accepted. India had
Yes.
accepted. So what exactly most important change that you feel we have achieved?
The biggest thing, we were, if you go back and look at the history of disability movement, we were first objects of sin, because of sin submitted by us or our parents or ancestors, we are born like this. So from sin, we moved to objects of charity because they were killing, they were burning, they were just ending our life. Then people started taking a little bit of pity on us. So temples and churches became the center of the movement where they gave us some clothes, some food, and to a large extent, this continues now also. On their birthdays, on their family functions, people go to the so-called blind school and deaf school and school
Yes.
for the intellect and distribute oranges and blankets and food. Still there. Then came a third phase where the World War I, World War II happened. They were bad things, but they were good for us Because when hundreds and thousands of veterans returned back with disability, lost their eyes, their hearing, their limbs, suddenly society woke up. Oh my, our family members, our colleagues, our,
Until it happens to us, we don't feel
yeah.
that sensitivity.
So how can we say they are sinful creatures or creatures, just to feed and kept in a home and forgotten about? That's how the rehabilitation phase started. Again, that was not so good because doctors took control of our life. Because doctors were deciding
Yes.
what I can do, what I cannot do. And the focus was how to cure me, how to make me better to adjust to the society. That was not a good phase. But then came the World Bank phase where the World Bank and the World Health Organization, they did a study and they found 10% of the population is disabled. And then government started thinking, oh my goodness, I cannot allow 10% of my population to sit and eat on my tax resources.
Acha.
I have to make them productive. That's how the Western countries, US, Japan, Australia, they galloped. But countries in South Asia, India, Asia, we were in the Middle East, we're still
I think
quite behind.
in the now we have got 21 diseases.
Yes, now I'm just coming to that. Then, so at this point of time, disability became a development issue. And then came 2006, the CRPD. This is largely born by the advocacy of many disabled activists, of many people with active disability, and many parents who had children and adults with disability at home. The major shift which UN CRPD brought was it said rights of people with disability is equal to human rights. No development, no economic growth, nothing, all these take a backseat. If you are a woman, say I am a woman of 60 plus, I have the same rights as any woman in India at the age of 60. That brought about massive change. We did a lot of demonstrations, discussions, dialogues, and finally, government was forced not just to sign, but to ratify. You know what happens when you ratify? You're bound by a pledge that you're going to change all the domestic laws
Yes.
in the light of CRP. And then changes started. Again, government played. They said, we'll amend our old law. We said, you cannot amend. We did a lot of exercise. Long back, we just so much of exercise, writing, researching. And we said, 500 amendments. Do you amend a law 500 times? It is important we go for a new law. So finally, a committee was formed. So this is Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 is a rights-based law, one of the most powerful in the world, not because any government Sarkari Babu wrote it. It's because it was made by people with disability, experts with disability, lawyers and doctors and professors with disability, parents of children with disability,
So basically,
children themselves. So earlier we said American with Disability Act, Equality Act of UK, these are powerful. Now we say RPWD Act is one of the most powerful
Most
acts. So legally and policy wise, we are now one of a strong country.
now that accountability is there, anyone denies you, he has to give it in writing.
Yes, because there is a 50,000 to 2 lakhs fine. There is a 6 months to 2 years imprisonment. So
Even the few I was going through, and I found certain rights which are very, very important in the way a child cannot be separated from the parent,
Yes.
citing that
yes,
you are not eligible to
take care of your
take
child.
care of her. There was one case in Maharashtra
Yes.
where the foster parents, the child was given to the foster parents, and the High Court told no, the biological mother, if she
Will-
wants to take care, she will take
she
care.
will take care.
Similarly, there was another incident was Sucheta Srivastav in Chandigarh.
Intellectually challenged.
Yes, she was mentally challenged and she was raped in the foster home, and where she became pregnant, and they thought of terminating the pregnancy because the doctors in fact gave the certificate that she is not mentally sound to take care of the
Child.
parenthood basically. But the Supreme Court gave the verdict. You cannot decide for a medical procedure, especially the motherhood or reproductive health, and The present day, when I was hearing this about of one of the doctors, he was telling that was a video which was recorded in 2021. So that girl, her name is Pari, and now she must be around 15-year-old, and she is taking care of the mother. And another also I was reading, we cannot chain anyone. Like many places, we see that the physically handicapped or mentally challenged, uh, they're being chained at a room or something. And in fact, one incident happened somewhere where
New Delhi.
some people they
Yeah.
burned,
Yeah.
they were burned alive, and those kind of things were brought into the light. And I think, as you told, judiciary is one of the biggest
Media and judiciary.
judiciary.
They have played significant, strong roles in highlighting the issue and bringing out cases before the society, showing us how insensitive we have been to community of people with disabilities.
Tell me something about your initiatives. Like, as I was going through, one is Swabhiman, which is your foundation, which takes care of all the disability acts and the advocacy. Anjali is another thing. And I was very much fascinated about Sasakt.
Yes.
I was so fascinated. You use the folk art and all that to educate people about the.
Yes.
Tell me
See,
something.
I think, you cannot just be theoretical to hold people's interest. So, I think whenever you're doing an advocacy work, first thing is should do a strong research, have good evidence, so that the person on the other side, they cannot negate you or they cannot refute what you're saying. That's number one. Number two is you must find out interesting ways of captivating people, holding their interest. So with this, I have number one was Swabhiman. Swabhiman was born out of a need when in 99, in Odisha was devastated by a cyclone, 1999. I don't know why we called it
Super
a
cyclone.
super cyclone. Super is a good adjective. Why we used it for the cyclone? It's sometimes I reflect on that. Anyway, I got involved. I was very active in the international scenario. It was not from Bhubaneswar to India to this thing. Mine was jump to the international and Delhi international, Delhi, and then Bhubaneswar local. 1999 Action Aid, it's a British firm, and they invited me to join them in Jagat Singhpur because they were planning some livelihood opportunities for the survivors. And they said, we have found 2 3 people who have speech and hearing impairment and some who are visually impaired. So can you help us with that? So I went there. And then I was going around talking to people, seeing what was happening. One thing that struck me was there were no shelters for people with disabilities. There was no counselors for mental health. There were none of the groups were talking about survivors with disability. If they found someone, that's okay. But nobody was taking that extra effort to find out how many became disabled because of that event, that cyclone. How many had a disability and now how many could be rescued. While planning their relief, did we think about batteries for the hearing aid, wheelchairs, crutches? Have we thought about secondary disabling conditions developing after the rescue? Because when you're rescuing, you're doing it in a very, it is life saving. So you don't think about if you're hurting or you're damaging the person. You don't think about it. It's a rush. And I'm talking about 1999. Now things are so much streamlined. And I asked ActionAid, where are the people with disabilities? You are coming from UK. You're so conscious about people with disabilities. In UK, you have such a strong law. I don't see anything here. And then we started another process. They created a team called Sneha Abhijan, a campaign of love, a campaign of compassion. And as they were going house to house, counseling families, supporting them, and speaking nice words, making them feel good, they started looking for survivors with disabilities. If anyone was there in the family, if they had lost anyone, if new disabilities had been found out, and that was my first entry. And then I found out, what if I'm a survivor of the cyclone and I want to know about what livelihood opportunities are available? Where will I go? No information. The only information available was there is a hospital, Olatpur in Nirtar. You could go there for your rehab. But
It's a
nothing else.
physiotherapist.
But
That's a
nothing
physiotherapist.
else. I have so many needs, just like another child:
Mm.
education, sports, employment, getting married, leisure, recreation, religious. Nothing was happening. So, where do I personally thought, if we provide information, then people will find their own way. And it actually helped. All that people needed was information, they were marching ahead. So we founded Swabiman State Disability Information and Resource Center. Rest, everything grew from that. For example, when I was in the US, I had been to a nursery school and I saw a teacher with 10, 12 students in her class, telling them, one of the child, go and stand near the wall with your face towards the wall. The rest of you play a game. Then she asked all 9 of them, which part did you enjoy? And they said, yes, the playing part. Then third, she says, for last 2 days, I see your classmates. There was a new boy in the class. He's sitting there in one corner. He's on a wheelchair. He's holding something to breathe. How many of you have gone and said hello? So the kids, they all ran towards the child. They ran, they become friends. So what struck me was how beautiful it is to spread a message through children. Children are your best messengers, and I thought of Anjali. 21 people rejected my idea, all departments. 22nd person was a young person from UNICEF. She was my friend in college, and we had founded a musical group called Clash. And so she helped us. Sukanya. Sukanya is her name. She took me to another offices, and Anjali was born. We received only, the secretary called UNICEF, they gave us 1,64,000. Okay, then EJCC they connected us with. EJCC came with resource person. And we
EJCC means?
Eastern Journal Cultural Center.
Okay.
And we started this festival, 3 days festival, and we brought all children there. They were all disabled, Divyang children. And we'd organized 4 different workshops: dance, music, theater, and crafts. But the next year, and there were 77 children with disabilities from Bhubaneswar. Okay. Next year, we were over 150, close to 200 or 300, and they came from many districts. They came from outside Odisha, one team came. And then we just galloped. The last festival that we closed, we have reached 57,000 children, and not just from 30 districts of Odisha, 25 states of India, and 7 countries of the
It
world.
has become a movement.
Yes, and Anjali has given birth to many activities. Teacher support program. I mean, it gave it was a catalyst for Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Suddenly people look, okay, children with and without disabilities can do so many things together. They are doing theater, they are doing photography, they're doing, and each of our workshop did not talk about disability. Just talked about that skill. And our resource person's responsibility was to train all of them in different ways. The hearing impaired through sign language, the visually impaired through tactile method, the regular children through whatever they did. So it was an eye opener for the teachers, for the parents, for the escorts who came with the kids. For them also, it was an eye opener. And Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan had just been implemented. So Anjali became a model. From Anjali was born many other things, the recent being Saksham. Saksham is where children with disabilities and those without, they learn together in the same government school, not separate private schools, same school. And Saksham did so well that we won 2 national awards, and in 2022, government of Odisha replicated it in 314 blocks. It's an inclusive child resource center.
Inclusivity.
And from there, we have now gone to Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan's activities, which started long back. And now with the state curricular framework, the new one which is coming up, the national education policy. In many pages that you read, you can find a reflection of what we were doing in Anjali. So I feel somehow Anjali has impacted the state of India. Then Shashat, when the new law was passed, Rights of Persons with Disability Act, for me, India was now a strong country, is a strong country as far as legal and policy environment is concerned. But what was the drawback? Why we were not able to achieve the numbers, the targets? It was because of implementation. We are lacking in implementation because there is lack of awareness. So neither the government offices at the district, block, or panchayat level, nor the people with disabilities are aware about the rights, are aware about the entitlements, aware about the policies existing. So 2016 was a unique awareness campaign where we used Odisha's folk arts because it was necessary that people listen to us. Why will they listen to a lecture from me? Instead, we were singing the RPWD Act. We were singing it. We were doing it through Jatra. We were doing it through Palla. We were doing it through Daskatia.
All the
Chadhi
local folk dance.
Chadhi Chadhiani dance. So we use the folk arts of Odisha. We produce the posters in Raghurajpur art. So that, and you know what happened? Lot of people with disabilities were accepted in the government committees when they were taking decision across the districts. That was something big which
That was
achieved.
big. So beautiful, madam. Just one thing, if someone wants to connect with Swabhiman, how would they reach you?
Suman, we are always looking for volunteers because we need more hands, we need more hearts, we need more money so that we are able to reach out to the last child, the last person with disability, the last hamlet of Odisha. For this, we need huge support. So, if you have a skill, if you have a time, if you have patience, and you want to really change lives, then you can write to us you can go to our website www.swabhiman.org. There we have how you can join with us as a research scholar, as an intern, as a volunteer, as a sponsor, as a well-wisher, as a collaborator. You come and join us, and there is a phone number also, and they can contact. Swabhiman is easily, you can look for it on the website. So come and join us and let us change the face of earth together.
Another thing before we end, I would like to discuss about is the UID card, the Swavlamban
UDID card.
UDID. I think it's the website is swavlangan.gov.in.
The Government of India site.
Government of India portal. So how has that UDID concept? How did that come, and how it is helping?
UDID is a great concept because it leverages all your other cards. You don't have, earlier what we were doing, one concession for the railways, one concession for the bus, one for the scholarships that to receive in the colleges, one for getting a scribe as per the departments, railway department, transport department of the state, then higher education, the district medical officer. All these certificates, you had a disability certificate, but apart from that, you needed all these certificates for various reasons. With UDID, it is just one card all across India. So it's so convenient. But unfortunately, we are still, the teething problems are there. A lot of people have received, but a lot more haven't yet received. So teething problems, some technical issues. I think it's a matter of a year or
think,
two.
I
Things
think
will
it's more
smoothen
about
out.
once people, even many people may not be knowing about it
Yes,
also.
yes.
Even in villages, they are
They
away
don't
from the
know.
internet,
Yes,
and also more and more messages
yes.
goes, and that will be
That would help.
circulated.
Yes.
And also, I
You
think
can have the TV. I think all of the television channels, Doordarshan included, all of them can run small scrolls.
yes.
We have about 12 or 15 important days of disability. Not just the 3rd December International Day for Persons with, but we have so many days. We have a
And it
Braille
was
Day.
so great
They
of
should scroll. They should
it was so
scroll.
great of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji to call it as Divyang rather than.
Yes.
I think that also makes a lot of difference the way we are addressing them.
I agree with you, but there are a lot people who don't agree. And I would say that one line, a rose is a rose by any name you call it. I personally identify with the UN terminology also used in our law, a person with disability. Person comes first, disability is second.
Second.
Using all these words, Vikalanga, Chutta,
Hmm.
Kempa, Kuja in local languages, they are so harsh to
No,
the
in
youth.
fact, one thing I would like to, in the new law, if
Punishable.
someone uses these words, Vikalanga, mental, psycho,
But
Kempa.
how many have been fined, or how many are there behind the.
Firstly, I think, madam, people are not aware about it. Maybe after seeing this podcast, some people may get to know about it. And if anyone gets to hear it, they can put a complaint in the police and they have a punishable
Yes, they have a
offense.
punishable offense. So true. It's there that can be done. So we are very proud of the Prime Minister. I practically, rather than be called Bikolanga, I like the word Dibyanga.
Hmm.
But many of our activist friends, they don't like the term Dibyanga. They say, don't make us divine beings. We are what we are, you just help us. But then I also don't like the other word, like differently able. And they have messed it up. Many called it differentially able. So we don't need all those terms. Just call
Again,
us by our name.
perspective, every person will have their own perspective
Perspective.
about everything. Thank you very much, madam. It was such an amazing discussion.
Thank you.
To your last message to the young person, or let us say the Gen Z, who are now the next generation, someone wants to start or wants to do some advocacy and help the society, but they are not really clear where, what they can do or how they can do. What is your message to them?
You see, before taking them there, my first message would be, don't waste your energy in activities like spending hours on your phone, sending this good morning, good afternoon, and forwarding messages. Just stop it. Your childhood and your youth will not come back. And this is the best time to learn and absorb when you have lot of creating energy within you. So best time to learn, spend it in learning. Number 2, life is not only about livelihood. Life is more important than livelihood. Understand the difference between life and livelihood. Only making friends and meeting people who relate to your job, who relate to your promotion, who relate to your entrepreneurship venture. No, that's not the right thing to do. People who will stay with you is with whom you start with a smile, whose issues, challenges you're able to, nothing much you're able to just pat their back. So human relationships are very important. Invest on that. Number 3, stop being disrespectful and using disrespectful lingo. So the kind of language that is all there, and this English that they are learning from their WhatsApp and others, is so faulty, so defective, so wrong, so wrong. And the words that they should be speaking only when they're 40s, they're speaking when they are 5, 6, 11 years old. Those things need to stop. And those who want to do something creative, remember, the opportunities will come to you if your intent is right. Always look down, be contented, see the hundreds of disadvantaged people under you. Lend a hand there. Help your maid's daughter to get educated. Help the elderly people in your house. Spend some good time with them. Just talk to them. And then opportunities will come your way anytime, everywhere. And most importantly, never ever say, I cannot, impossible. These words should not exist in your dictionary.
Rather, I am possible.
I am possible.
Mm.
Everything is possible.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much, madam, from the core of my heart. And I'm sure the podcast will be very much appreciated by all the viewers. I had a great time talking to you.
I had a
And-
great time talking to you.
And we will, in fact, I'm sure I'll be very closely associated with you and your
Please.
movement in future also.
you.
And
Thank
thank you very much, madam.
Thank you so much.
Before we end, for all the viewers, thank you for watching till the end. And do give your comments, your opinions, your critics. Also, suggest anyone you think can come to our show, and do subscribe, share with your friends. Thank you very much.